بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. اللهم صل على محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع والديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وعومي بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وحاستي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يعلمني ما يعلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن صالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورزوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى युक़रिउका सलामु व युहुस्सुका बित्तहिय्यति वल इकराम व यक़ूलु लका व इज़्ज़ती व जलाली इन्नी मा खलक़तु समाअम मबनिया वला अर्ज़म मदहिया वला कमरम मुनीरा वला शम्सम मुज़िया वला फलकन यदूरु वला बहरन यजरी वला फुल्कन यसरी इल्ला लिअजलिकुम व मुहब्बतिकुम वक़द अज़िन ली अन अदख़ुला मअकुम फ़हल तअज़नु ली या रसूलल्लाहि फ़क़ाल रसूलुल्लाहि व अलैकस्सलाम या अमीना वह्यिल्लाहि नअम कद अज़िनतु लका फ़दख़ल जिब्राईलु मअना तहतल किसाई फ़क़ाल लिअबी इन्नल्लाह क़द औहा इलैकुम यक़ूलु इन्नमा युरीदुल्लाहु लियुज़हिबा अन्कुमुर रिज्सा अहलल बैति व युत्तहिरकुम तत्हीरा। फ़क़ाल अली लिअबी या रसूल अल्लाह अख़बिरनी मा लिजलूसिना हाज़ा तहतल किसाई मिनल फ़ज़ली इंदल्लाहि फ़क़ाल अन्नबिय्यु सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि वल्लज़ी बअसनी बिल हक़्क़ि नबिय्यन वस्तफ़ानी बिर्रिसालति नजिय्यम मा ज़ुकिरा खबरुना हाज़ा फ़ी महफ़िलिन मिन मख़ाफ़िलि अहलिल अर्ज़ि व फ़ीही जम्उन मिन शिअतिना व मुहिब्बीना इल्ला व नज़लत अलैहिमुर रहमा व हफ़्फ़त बिहिमुल मलाइकतु वस्तग़फ़रत लहुम इला अन यतफ़र्रक़ू फ़क़ाल अली अलैहिस्सलामु इज़न वल्लाहि फ़ुज़ना व फ़ाज़ शिअतुना व रब्बिल कअबा फ़क़ाल अबी रसूलुल्लाहि सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि या अलिय्यु वल्लज़ी बअसनी बिल हक़्क़ि नबिय्यन वस्तफ़ानी बिर्रिसालति नजिय्यम मा ज़ुकिरा खबरुना हाज़ा फ़ी महफ़िलिन मिन मख़ाफ़िलि अहलिल अर्ज़ि व फ़ीही जम्उन मिन शिअतिना व मुहिब्बीना व फ़ीहिम महमूमुन इल्ला व फ़रजल्लाहु हम्मा वला मग़मूमुन इल्ला व कशफ़ल्लाहु गम्मा वला तालिबु हाजतिन इल्ला व क़ज़ल्लाहु हाजता फ़क़ाल अली अलैहिस्सलाम इज़न वल्लाहि फ़ुज़ना व सुइदना व कज़ालिक शिअतुना फ़ाज़ू व सुइदू फ़िद्दुनिया वल आख़िरति व रब्बिल कअबा।
और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु बारे दीगर सल्लल्लाहु क्या पूछते हो अहले अज़ाब हाय क्या करूं बयां मैं ज़ाहिर हुसैन हूँ और एक नौखा आया हूँ करबला से बसदरंज और फुगा कोई करे सवाब, ये आंसू है क्यों रवा। दिल करबला में रह गया, मैं आ गया यहाँ। दिल करबला में रह गया, मैं आ गया यहाँ। अरे ये दिल बिना हुसैन के, ये दिल बिना हुसैन के पाए सुकून कहाँ। दिल करबला में रह गया, मैं आ गया यहाँ। नाम हुसैन काफी था रोने के वास्ते, एक एक कदम रुलाती है यूं करबला मुझे। पहले मैं ख़ैमगाहे हुसैनी पे रुक गया, पहले मैं ख़ैमगाहे हुसैनी पे रुक गया। याद आ गया कि एक बहन यातीनो गुर्बत में कत्ल हो गया, बेवतन है। मैं भाई भाई कहती थी लाशा बहन बहन, मैं भाई भाई कहती थी लाशा बहन बहन, मैं भाई भाई कहती थी लाशा बहन बहन। निकला मैं उसके बाद क़याम हुसैन से, आसार थोड़ी दूर थे क़त्ए यदैन के। देखा मकाम बाज़ू बुरीदा में रो दिया, देखा मुकाम बाज़ू बुरीदा में रो दिया। कैसे पुकारा होगा वफ़ाओं का आसमां, मेरे हाथ नहीं है, मेरे हाथ नहीं है। मैं कैसे उठूं आका, मेरे हाथ नहीं है, मेरे हाथ नहीं है। नजदीक था मकामे अली अकबर जवान, गिरिया गुना थी सहरा लिए चंद बेबिया। आवाज फिजाओं में दिल को हिलाती थी, आवाज फिजाओं में दिल को हिलाती थी। बाबा मिले तो कहना कि कहता था एक जवान, है जान अब लबों पर बरछी न खींचना, बोले पदर से अकबर बरछी न खींचना। गहवारा एक छोटी इमारत में था रखा। अरे गहवारे में शानू का था एक खून में भरा। गहवारा चूम चूम के दे दे के लोरिया। गहवारा चूम चूम के दे दे के लोरिया। लगता था कह रही हो हुसैन हसन की माँ कुर्बान असगर जान आ जाओ। हाँ वो मकाम जो के ज़मीं से बुलंद था। बेटी अली और ज़हरा पहुंची बसद बुका। देखी जो चलते गर्दने शबीर पर छुरी। देखी जो चलती गर्दने शबीर पर छुरी। ज़ैनब पुकारी बाबा गज़ब हो गया यहाँ। ज़ैनब लिपट के बाप से देती रही सदा। 70 कदम का फासला भाई बहन में था। 70 कदम का फासला भाई बहन में था। और जन्नत है आज भी रोजा हुसैन का। मक़सूद कायनात है बाबा हुसैन का। इतने अमीर बाप के बेटे ने क्यों कहा। इतने अमीर बाप के बेटे ने क्यों कहा। फरियाद कर रही हो जो सूखी हुई ज़बां। अम्मा गरीब हूँ मैं, अम्मा गरीब हूँ मैं, अम्मा गरीब हूँ मैं, अम्मा गरीब हूँ मैं। दिल करबला में रह गया, मैं आ गया यहाँ। मंजर बड़ा अजीब था, रेहान और रज़ा। मक़तल की समत जाने लगी शाह करबला। और नींद से सकीना के चेहरे पे वरम था। और नींद से सकीना के चेहरे पे वरम था। गोदी में लेके शहने कहा अपना हो पुआ। मेरी सकीना को नींद आ रही है। बानो ये आबिद को बतला रही है। मेरी सकीना को नींद आ रही है। दिल करबला में रह गया, मैं आ गया यहाँ। ये दिल बिना हुसैन के पाए सुकून का दिल करबला में रह गया मैं आ गया यहाँ सलवात
MashaAllah, that was a beautiful recitation from Brother Ali and from Brother Ali Raza. Now I'd like to invite Brother Sayyid Abbas Farshori up to the minbar for his lecture on our Hussein template for unity. And we all invite him up with a loud salawat.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Request for Surah Fatiha for Sayyid Naseem, Sayyid Akhtar Abbas, Sayyid Muhammad Hussein, and Sayyid Ghulam Abbas, and all Mu'min and Mu'minat. Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا حبيب إله العالمين أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على القوم الظالمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله عبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله الآخر الأحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. يا رحمة الله الواسعة، يا باب نجاة الأمة، يا عبرة لكل مؤمن ومؤمنة، يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. فيا ليتني يا ليتني كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أدعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum. In our discussion about how we can make sure we are living a life which is imbued with unity, we have made certain acceptances. The first acceptance was that unity exists for us on the basis of our shared love for Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. That no matter what distinction I have in my life, no matter what experience I go through, no matter how different me and you might be on any issue, we have the strongest thing which we share in commonality, and that is love for this holy family. And that we go to Allah Azza wa Jal wanting to hold on to the wasila of Ahlul Bayt. That then leads to walaya between me and you, because we have brotherhood and sisterhood that, you know what, me and you share in common the same object of adoration, and we go back to Allah in the same path. So my love for my Imam extends to my love for anyone else who has love for my Imam as well. However, in this path of unity in the love of the wilayat of the Ahlul Bayt, there are many people who want to tie and take us away from this unity. They want to cause disunity among us. They want to use the very basis of why we are coming together to split us apart. They want to take Ahlul Bayt, the way we understand them, and introduce ideas in our minds that would make us split from one another. That because you look at them different to how I look at them, we cannot be unified anymore. We cannot go to each other's homes anymore. We don't come to each other's centers anymore. We have lost respect for each other. We don't even spend time with each other. So how can I be a brother or sister to them if I've allowed this hatred to enter my heart? More than this, the thing which has been used to disunify us is the very thing which should be the basis for our unity, which is Ahlul Bayt. But things like how the Ahlul Bayt are, how you should love them, what practices we can do to demonstrate our love for them, how do we mourn for Ahlul Bayt in their suffering, which ulama help us go to Ahlul Bayt, which ulama are apparently taking us away from Ahlul Bayt, which actions are we doing now which are not linked to Ahlul Bayt, what actions should we be doing which they told us to do, which we are not doing. All of these discussions go back to how we regard Ahlul Bayt. So today, inshallah, we want to look at firstly this idea that we disagree. Where does this come from in the Quran? According to the Quran, why do people disagree? It has a very good reason and definition in the verse of Quran I'll mention. Why? Why is there disagreement among people? That same Quran then gives solution of how we should act to not have disagreements generally. Once we have this framework of how the Quran wants us to react to in general disagreement, we now go to these issues. Though one person says we should not do wasila to Ahlul Bayt, one person says we have to do wasila to Ahlul Bayt. One person says this alim will take you towards the Imam, 12th Imam. One person says you can't follow any alim except this alim, or you're not going to 12th Imam. One person says that this practice we are doing is genuinely discriminatory and racist. What do we do? How do we answer all of these issues, and specifically these three? Who the Ahlul Bayt are, ulama being used to disunify people, and discrimination in our community. How do we use Ahlul Bayt to counter those challenges to our unity, inshallah? And like all discussions, we'll end with one practical advice for all of us to follow, inshallah. Bearing in mind also that today is the night of the death of our holy lady, Sayyidah Ma'suma Yaqum, sallallahu alayha wa sallam. So if there's time, we'll allow ourselves to consider the musibah of this holy personality, and we hope, inshallah, through her blessing, this majalis has barakah, inshallah. To begin our majlis, if we are all together, inshallah, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And since I've mentioned Sayyidah Ma'suma, I do not think our third Imam would go somewhere or would not go somewhere if her name has been mentioned. So certainly he is with us, inshallah, to welcome him. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first issue is, why do we have disagreement? Why? Where do they come from? What is the basis for them? The Quran gives a very good definition for why people don't agree in general. The verse begins for Surah Baqarah, verse 2 and 3. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Kana an-nas ummatan wahidatan. The people are initially one ummah. They were one at some point. This is our default position. We were one. فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ نَبِيِّنَ وَمُبَشِّرِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla then sent a prophets and various people to give news to keep this qawm united. Okay. وَمُنذِرِينَ أَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ. And he established a book for this qawm to keep them together. And they have one book with one function. What's the function? لَيَحْكُمُوا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِيمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. To use whenever there is an ikhtilaf among the people, this book is used to keep them together. Quran mentions this. Ummatun wahid, one ummah. Prophets were sent and one book to keep them together, so they don't have any ikhtilaf. وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ, and they didn't actually have any disagreements, إِلَّا except الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا, those people that when they got revelation to them, مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, they disagreed over what had been revealed to them, and because of this, بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ, they developed jealousy among one another, animosity amongst one another. So they were given one book and one prophet, but because of the way religion was sent and how they reacted to religion, they allowed it to become a cause of disunity among them. فَحَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِي آمَنُهُ لِمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الْحَقِّ بِإِذْنِهِ. Allah Azza wa Jal only has hidayah and guidance for those people who stay away from ikhtilaf and stay as one unit. Only those people, بإذنه, by his permission. وَاللَّهُ يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ. Allah guides whomsoever he wants, إِلَى صِرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, towards صِرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. This is a very good framework to begin with. Now I know why there's this unity. It didn't start off like this. We are all separate factions. It started off وَكَانَ أُمَّةٌ وَاحِدٌ. There was one ummah. And we were sent the same prophets throughout history who had the same mission and the same message. And we were sent a series of books, and each book had, ideally, essentially, the same message. What happened was when that message was revealed, some people had ikhtilaf among themselves. The ikhtilaf is normal, but it's what happens after ikhtilaf. After the ikhtilaf, بعد ikhtilaf, they had بغية منهم. They had allowed this ikhtilaf to become genuine resentment in their hearts with the other person. Now, when that happened, they became disunified. So they allowed it to happen. They allowed their hearts to become separate from somebody else, and not just separate ideologically, I mean emotionally as well. They had feelings against one another. Baghyam here is an emotional word. It's about how you feel about someone. And they allowed it to happen. Now, when they allowed it to happen, of course, that's when there was disunity. But Allahu yahdi man yasha, Allah guides whomsoever He wants. So if someone doesn't want to be on this path of disunity, Allah will allow them to have hidayah under one banner of one ummah. It's if we want unity. That's one meaning of this verse. So our framework is this. Our basis default is all to be one together. That's how we were created. Now, when we go separately and go further, that's because I did something in not understanding either the Prophet or the book, because both have been sent to keep me in ummatun wahida. The next issue, which obviously this makes sense to us, inshallah, is okay, if I have ikhtilaf, then how do I make sure my ikhtilaf doesn't become baghyam? So if I have a disagreement, how do I make sure I don't allow that disagreement to become a feeling about you and you about me? About this issue, the Quran also gives us other pieces of advice for how to disagree with respect to one another. And when we have an issue with someone, exactly how to act. I'll mention for you 2 verses about this, inshallah, about what to do when you have a disagreement with somebody. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first verse is that I mentioned earlier when I began the Majlis. Ad'u, call people ila sabili rabbika, towards the way of your Lord. Invite them all. Bil hikmati wal maw'idati al-hasana. Call them with wisdom and good counsel. Wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. And make sure if you are arguing, your argument is in good form. This verse tells me 3 things. If I'm calling someone towards God, I have to use 3 methods in just speaking to them. Number 1, I have to speak with wisdom. The words that I use with someone. Even when I talk to you about religion, I can't use any words to describe any concept. Number 2, maw'adatil hasana, good advice. I don't come to somebody in a forceful way. I don't throw religion on them like a stone's thrown on someone's head. I don't force hijab on someone as if they have no choice but to die except they do this. You speak with maw'adatil hasana, good advice, good conduct. Wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. And you make sure if you argue, meaning if you have a disagreement, your disagreement is done in the best possible way. Okay, let's break this down a little bit more. Ad'u, call people. This is the universal call of the religion of Islam. The word dua comes from the word da'a, which means to call people. Dua is you calling Allah Azza wa Jal. It's almost like you're picking up a phone and calling God and wanting to speak to Him. Anyone can do dua at any time whatsoever. You can right now, if you want, close your eyes, speak to Allah. Nahnu aqrabu ilayya min hablil warid. Dua can be me whispering to Allah in my own mind. This verse then call them towards your Lord, towards Allah Azza wa Jal. And when you call them, awwalan, we speak with hikmah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Calling someone to the way of your Lord requires wisdom, with hikmah. The way you speak to somebody about religion must be done in a very considered way. Not just with hikmah. Hikmah is wisdom. It's aqlan. You're saying the right words. Maw'idatul hasana means the way I speak to you is gentle. It's kind towards you. It's not in anything which takes you away from religion. Religion, when I speak to you, should be something which is seen as fun or enjoyable or fitratan or natural, not something imposed on me against my own nature. Maw'idatul hasana, as Ayatul Jawadi Amr explains first, is when the prophets would speak to every community based on how they needed to be communicated to. Every prophet spoke to people how they should be spoken to. They knew who's in front of them. They knew how they act. They know what their customs are. They know how to address them. They didn't have the same method. They spoke differently. Different prophets spoke in different ways because their qawm was different. And when you argue, when you disagree, you do it in the best possible way. About this, Allama Tadwai says when the prophets would speak, not only they'd know the level of the qawm, they'd know the aql of the one they're speaking to. They know the level of rationality and reason. They would not go so deep into a topic the person's not knowing what's going on. If someone has come with genuine desire for ilm, they'd give them that ilm. They discuss with them according to their level, according to their mi'yar. This is how you call someone towards God. This is also how you disagree. You disagree saying, who's in front of me? How are they? Why do they think what they think? How do they come to this opinion, this position? Let me speak to them in the best possible way. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam has a hadith when he says, it's attributed to saying, that we speak to everyone and answer every question based on the level of the one asking us. Because if you look in the book, sometimes one imam answers a question, the same question is put to another imam much later, and the answer is not exactly the same. You would think, hold on a second, Ahl al-Bayt have the same source of ilm. These are people who are rasikhuna fil ilm, deeply entrenched in knowledge. Why is one imam answering one thing, the other imam answering another thing? There are various reasons to this. One reason could be, for example, one imam was in taqiyya where the other one was. We have examples of this. Or for example, one imam is explaining a principle, the other imam is showing how it applies in a different situation. Another argument is this: the one asking has a certain capacity, and the imams know how much capacity you have. So if you ask the imam a question, they'll give you as much as you can take. They won't give you more, and they won't give you less either. For example, our imams speak to certain companions in ways they don't speak to anyone else. Some of our most deep and hadith with the full ma'rifah from Imam Ali alayhi salam are directly to Salman or to Kumail, for example. The way Imam speaks to them is not like how he speaks to everyone else. Another example, some of our most intellectual and most deep aqlan hadith we have from Sadiq alayhi salam are said to Hisham bin Hakam or to Mufaddal, because these companions could take it. They could bear hearing the depth of the knowledge of the imams. Some people couldn't. My imam says, Saloni, ask me before you lose me. Someone says, how much hair is on my head? They just didn't want to, or they couldn't handle the truth. But when someone comes, you give them according to their level. Just like when you disagree with someone, you answer them in number one with wisdom, number two in the best possible way that you can disagree with someone, number three, if you are going to have a disagreement and an argument, you do it in the best possible way. It should not be that I disagree with someone and that person turns away from the religion because of how I spoke to them. It's not enough to know the truth. Don't we hear this all the time? It's not the same thing as what you know, it's how you say it. It's not about being on the truth anymore. How you communicate the truth depends on whether or not that person's heart is going to change. And Shaykh Mutahari explains towards us, when you speak to somebody, Mu'ayda means you're not here just to be right, you're here to change their hearts. That's your aim. Now, to change someone's qalb means to speak to them in a very careful way. When I disagree, I should not make you hate me or me hate you because of our disagreement. Then I failed in my task. And if I'm disagreeing about deen of Islam itself, what did we mention just now before? We were one ummah, as the Quran says in Surah 2, verse 213. It was when we disagreed and allowed that disagreement to become bughd in our heart that we became disunified. It wasn't that we disagreed. It's normal to disagree. It's how we disagreed which was the problem. So that's the first advice we have from this verse of Quran. That when you disagree, when you even call people towards God, you do it in a very strict method of careful speech. Let me mention to you one more verse. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The next verse is on the same principle. Read it. Salawat ala Muhammad. Again, about what we do when I have an issue with someone. How do I deal with it? Maybe I'm doing it in the wrong way. The verse of Surah 5, verse 8. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawamin. All people of belief, people of Iman, stand together firmly for Allah. Qawamin, stand. Yani, that's your base position. Lillahi shuhada bil qist. Why? Because you are someone who's about to give witness to Allah with justice, with qist. I stand with justice. That's my aim. And of course, the prophets have been sent to establish justice on this earth. You do the same. Follow your prophet. Speak with and stand with justice. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَاءً قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا. Don't allow your hatred for somebody to prevent you from having justice. I have to have adl. Just because I dislike the one I'm speaking to, or I'm disliked by the one whom I'm speaking to, that's no excuse to not have justice. Stand with justice. A'dalu, the verse continues, have justice. This is closer to you, closer towards having God consciousness and taqwa. Standing with justice, even when you don't like who you're speaking to, you don't let it become anything in your heart. وَاتَّقُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Have taqwa to Allah. Allah has full knowledge and khabar of what you do and what you say. Allah knows. Adding this to the previous verse tells me this: if I disagree with someone, the basis should be what is the most adil thing in this situation. What's right and wrong? What is justice in this situation? We're trying to get to the same common goal. Now, if you're getting there elsewhere and I'm getting there elsewhere, how do I deal with it? Number one, I don't allow that conversation to end with me having hatred towards you. Quran says then you're not doing qist anymore. Instead, I speak to you with those three things I mentioned: hikmat, mu'adat al-hasana, and jadilhu fillati ahsan. With wisdom, with good words, and with my approach should be the best possible form of arguing, inshallah. So now, if someone says to you, why do we have disagreements? You can say, well, according to the Quran, it's because the way we disagreed was the wrong way. It wasn't that we disagreed. That's our base principle. Today, unfortunately, there are many people trying to divide the ummah, trying to tear us apart. And like I mentioned a few days ago, the basis of our unity is wilayat of Ali alayhi salam. They use this same wilayat of Ahlul Bayt to tear us apart. Try and make you feel like, you know what, you're not following the Imam in the right way. I'm following the Imam better than you. And the way they communicate it to you will make your heart go away from them. You won't have love for that person anymore. The reason why we have these disagreements is an issue in history. In our tariq, historically, there have been many different opinions of how the Imams were, how they lived. And during the life of the Imams, we had two very small but very vocal extreme groups. And the majority were in between. Both of these groups, these minority groups, lived and continued through the line of all of the 12 Imams and continue today. And today, some of the words we use, like I mentioned a few days ago, words like muqassir, words like nusayri, words like malang, these words come from that debate. That debate was between two groups. What were those groups? The first group believed and had this principle that the Imam's role is principally political. The first thing. Things like Islam and Deen and being on religion come later. The first thing is Shi'ism is one political faction. And many followers believe this. It was one of their fundamental beliefs. They believe that Shias are just like all other beliefs, except we have one disagreement of who the Khalifa is after Rasulullah. That's it. Everything else, okay, we're the same. Because of this, things like Asma of Ahlul Bayt, things like unity, things like keeping a qawm together, things like how to communicate, all these things came second. Things like, were Ahlul Bayt infallible or not? How do we go back towards them? What is tawassul? All these things became secondary. The first thing is primarily political. Because of this, and we'll see how the idea progressed through history, for them, the Deen of Islam is primarily one of multiple political ideologies in the world. Okay, that's one group. They existed from the beginning. The second group, which existed from the beginning, a small minority group, was that of ghulu. That group believed that the role of Ahlul Bayt and of the Imam was so close to Allah Azza wa Jal, you can no longer tell the difference between Allah and the Imam. From that group, you have things like Nusayrism, things like Alawites, and those groups which came from there. These two groups were the minority. And the rest of the community was the majority. But because of how loud those two groups have been, today our language is filled with words from that debate. How did that debate begin? How did it come to us right now? Let's read the Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. From the first Imam, Ali alayhi salam, some people believed Imam Ali's claim was entirely political. All it was siyasat. He wanted to be the Khalifa after the Rasulullah, or his claim was Khilafat, and he should have been the Khalifa after. It was not about Imamat. It was about who's in power. The role of Ali alayhi salam should be to take the Islamic government, to take the Khilafat, to be in charge. Why is he not doing it? And their whole claim was Ali should be the Khalifa, not that he's the Imam. See the difference. Imam is a completely different thing to Khilafat. Khilafat is one small part of Imamat. Imamat is much wider than Khilafat. But they believed, and part of their belief was, the only thing which distinguishes the Shia from any other community is that we have one political disagreement. That's it. That idea began then, and we'll see how it continued. On the other hand, you had people in the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam who called him God, who literally said that he was Allah Azza wa Jal, to the extent where the Imam alayhi salam spoke against them, and some hadith indicate he set fire to them for their kufr. They would call him Allah Azza wa Jal. But they would do ghulu to this extent, where they would exaggerate his merits so wide, they start calling him Allah. That's that first disagreement. Now, from then onwards, these ideas developed further. Okay, second Imam alayhi salam. Now, imagine, the first group thinks what? Imam is completely political, everything's politics. Imam Hassan alayhi salam comes, he does a peace treaty. So many people then criticized Imam Hassan alayhi salam for doing the peace treaty. Some would call him Ya Mudhill al-Mu'mineen, O one who disgraced the Mu'mineen. Your father was in power and you've done a peace treaty with Muawiyah. How can you? Their belief was this: the Imam's role is political. We have to be in political power as the primary obligation. So if my Imam's not done it, we'll insult him. And Hassan alayhi salam received so much abuse from the people for this peace treaty. Whereas we know that Islam today exists because of that peace treaty. That peace treaty that Sulaiman Hassan alayhi salam is no less than Khaybar and Karbala. It belongs in those books of bravery to have the wisdom to know when to sit and when to stand. Rasulullah says, Hassan and Hussein are Imams whether they sit or they stand. Unfortunately, many people left Imam Hassan alayhi salam because of this. He did not fit the idea of what a political activist should be. Okay, on the other hand, the group of Ghulu extended much more powerful in the same life of the second Imam alayhi salam. Now, we have an idea of the Mufawwada who continue more, who believe in something called Tafweed. Tafweed, they believe, is when Allah Azza wa Jal delegates his authority to the Imam. His authority to the Imam. Not the Imam gets authority from Allah. That's when the Imam takes all his power from Allah. No, the Imam has himself his own authority. So if the Imam alayhi salam wants to abrogate Quran, he can, ideologically. If the Imam wants to change the Sharia, he can. He has full authority to do this. This idea of Tafweed developed then and continued more so. Okay, now we come to the third Imam, Hussein alayhi salam, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now that political group has a brand new principle which shall never let go of. The Imam must be Qaim. The Imam must stand. Because here's Abu Abdullah not doing a peace treaty, not doing the Hassani approach. Abu Abdullah has gone straight, taking his sword out, fighting the enemy. Forget the situation why he's there. Their belief is the Imam is the one now who stands and goes towards conflict and establishes himself as the authority in the land. That's their first thing. Because of that, every other Imam after was held by this standard. If Hussein took his sword out and fought against the enemy, why are you not fighting? Whether it's against Banu Umayyah or Banu Abbas, whether it's then or today, why are you not right now making a government? Why not? Why are you making an institution? This group then would use Karbala for the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Imam, saying the same thing. Why are you not in power now? We are there to help you. Why are you not in power? At the same time, the other group is also growing. Which group? The group which now becomes called the Nusayriya. Their ideology becomes now that the Imams alayhi salam have full wilayat, takwini, and tashri', not just to a normal extent, to such a degree that we can go to them and ask them and not ask Allah anymore. That became their belief then. And so in this time of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, some of them even denied Abu Abdullah being killed. They said the Imams can't die. Imam is Hujjah on this earth. Imam does nuzul. Maybe you've heard this today, people say this as well today. Imam wasn't dead. Imam was ascended towards heaven and he'll come back towards earth at some point. This idea started then, where some people could not believe an Imam could even die. The same idea which we saw in a similar form when the death of the Holy Prophet, where some people said the Prophet can't die, whereas they don't understand something. Wilayat continues until eternity. It doesn't die with the Imam or the Prophet. It continues. That happened then. Now comes our 4th Imam. And the first group has an example of Hussein alayhi salam to say, Ya Imam, why are you not uprising? Your father was killed on Ashura. Your brothers, your uncles, why were you not killed? So many groups formed then with an incorrect method of uprising. And they wanted Imam Sajjad alayhi salam to join them. Whereas Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, his plan was to first do a full tarbiyat of who they are. Risalatul Huquq, Sayf al-Sajjadiyah, so many ahadith on doing dua and tarbiyat. You're not ready for revolution yet. You don't even follow Allah the right way. So when Imam alayhi salam had this approach, some people were genuinely angry with him. That we are here to fight alongside you and avenge Karbala. There were 4 uprisings after Ashura. 4 of them. In none of them did Imam Sajjad alayhi salam take his sword out like Imam Hussein alayhi salam and go and fight. At the same time, now while they're saying this, the other group comes as well. And now we're seeing other groups being formed, which are now becoming firqas going away from the 12 Shi'ism. For example, the Kaysaniya. The Kaysaniya came at this time, who believed that not only the Imams have supernatural powers, even others like Muhammad al-Hanafiya have supernatural powers, where they can be turned to instead of Allah Azza wa Jal. Why? Because they were so frustrated and the Imams would not allow even 1 second of ghulu to be approved in front of them. They went to other places to justify their beliefs. Went to Muhammad al-Hanafiya. And they made him, in their words, the new type of Mahdi for them to follow. Here's Imam alayhi salam who's not with them at all. He's following the deen of Islam. But these two minority groups are becoming louder and louder and louder. Now we come to our fifth Imam, same thing continues. They say to the Imam, you are now in Medina, you're powerful. You have an army alongside you. You have a house that you're establishing. Why don't you uprise? Why does time not come now? Time not come for you to become the upriser? Imam alayhi salam, through his wisdom, says now is not the right time to uprise. They then follow Zayd instead of him, and the Zaydi movement begins from there. That if you're not going to uprise and take political power, and I want you to be in power, I want us to be in power right now, in this moment, I'll follow someone who'll do it. They follow Zayd. Gradually, you're going to see so many groups became splintered because one of these two groups didn't get what they want. Either the political group didn't get government, or the Nusayri group didn't get the Imam to admit he's God. And they then went to the Imam in different directions. While Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam is doing all the work he's doing, establishing this deen, making Medina strong, returning us back to time of Rasulullah, that group who comes after, Mufawwida, they had a new belief which came now, which was the following. We find this in the life of the fifth Imam, that Allah is the Rabb of the Samawat and the Imam is the Rabb of the Ard. When I die, they believe, some we have this in their books, that we go to Allah in Akhirah. But while I'm in Dunya, everything I need to go to my Imam alayhi salam. They are the Rabb on this earth. In the same way, Jesus was the Son of God. They made the Imam like this. Now, of course, we have numerous ahadith about Imams rejecting this completely. But this group of Nusayrism of the old type continued growing and spreading. Now comes the time of our sixth Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Now, this is a pivotal moment in this debate of what happens next. Because Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is strong, Imam Sadiq is powerful, more so than the previous Imams in terms of the numbers he has. He has thousands he's teaching. And the Imam alayhi salam has genuine authority. And we are coming to an area, close to an area, where between Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas, there'll be a moment where neither has consolidation of power. None of them are genuinely in authority over everyone. So if there's an opportunity to take power, it's going to be this Imam. It's going to be him. Take the government now. We have numbers. So they go to him and say to him, Ya Imam, we are here to fight for you. We've come from Persia. We're going to fight alongside you. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says to them, do you have loyalty for me? They said, yes, we have loyalty. He says, okay, this oven of fire, go and sit inside it. The man says, how can I sit in the fire? I'll get burnt. Imam says, okay. Another companion walks in. Imam Sadiq says, you. He doesn't say any context. Come here, go in the fire. Immediately he goes into the fire. He sits in the fire. He's not hurt at all. He comes out, walks out. Imam Sadiq says, if I had more like this, maybe then I would consider a revolution. But I don't have people like this now. The work's not been done yet to have Imam al-Qaim alayhi salam's hukumat yet. So in that time, many people became very frustrated with the Imam. And they thought that we have all these slogans, Ya la Tharat al-Hussein, we should avenge Imam Hussein, we should have this government now. But why is Imam not doing it? And many more sects came from this time. Not only sects, certain beliefs came then, which were overtly political beliefs. For example, we have a principle called Nas, which is designation, that one Imam, when they die, they should designate who the Imam is after, to show people, here's the Imam after me. Does the Imam need to be designated overtly? The ulama disagree, but in general, the answer is no. The Imam is the Imam, whether someone says or not. He's Hujjat of Allah Azza wa Jal. At this time, a view came that the Imam should be the son of the Imam. And it's almost like a dynasty where one dies, the son takes over. One dies, son takes over, like we have in kings. Ironically, we the Shia don't believe the eldest son takes power. There are some instances where that doesn't happen, like the later Imams, for example. It's not the eldest son who's the Imam, it's another Imam. Allah chooses the Imam. But at this time, they had this idea that when a leader dies, only their son should be in power to continue the line of the father. This started when? Muhammad Sadiq alayhi salam's time. On the other hand, the debate of the Nusayris becomes widespread at this time. In Qum and in Kufa at that time, there was a widespread debate between the cities of the ulama and the followers of Imams from those cities. Some were very strongly in favor of the point of Nusayrism. They're very close towards Khulu. There's a debate recorded between two dear companions of the Imam. One of the Imam's companion was Mu'allim ibn Khunais. One was Abdullah ibn Abi Ya'fur. Both are debating. Ibn Ya'fur narrates many ahadith. In their debate, they mention what people believe. One of them says, some people believe this, some believe. One of them says, some people believe that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is the one we go to instead of Allah on this earth. Do you agree? Some people believe Nabi Isa on this earth authority is the same as that of the Imam. Do you agree? So in their debate, we see there was more than one opinion at the time of who the Imam is. It was from then, not from now. Of course, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam carries on his mission. When it comes to the seventh Imam, the people of the first group reach a level where they are so frustrated, the most amount of splintering happens in this time of the 7th Imam alayhi salam. Those who reject his imamate because he's not in power. They literally said, the time's come right now. Before Imam's in prison, Shia's at their peak and the political system is at its weakest. Why have you not taken power? Why not at least now? Imam al-Qadim alayhi salam, through his wisdom, chose now was not the time. When they saw this, so many groups split off then. Waqafiyya split off then, for example. So when Imam al-Qadim alayhi salam goes into prison, this group says, you know what, if he's in prison, we've been hearing narration after narration, there's going to be a ghaiba, there's going to be a ghaiba. Maybe this is the ghaibat of the Imam. He's gone into prison now. And in 8 months, he'll come out. When he's out, according to narrations, we'll do the movement. 8 months go by, Imam al-Qadim is still in prison. This whole group leaves behind, becomes a whole new splintering sect. That we don't follow him anymore. We find a different person to follow who will take us to political power. All they want is government, not what the Imam wants. Okay. At the same time, the other argument continues. Now we have clear examples of ghulu. During this time, the issue of ismat becomes more widespread, infallibility. And there's a debate happening at that time. Is the Imam completely infallible, partially infallible, or not at all infallible? Right now, by the way, there are people who do inkar against the estimate of the Ahlul Bayt. You'll see it now. Even people who give speeches will speak against infallibility. At that time this happened. Anyone who did not agree in the infallibility in a kulli sense was called a muqassir. That's where that word comes from. That they do not believe the Imam is infallible. They're saying something the Imam would never do. My Imam's ma'soom. And some people are mentioning narrations, the Imam does ijtihad. Like what? Ijtihad in the same way that Rasulullah, that they said Rasulullah would do. That he doesn't know what the truth is, he goes to Quran and he thinks what the truth is and he does it in that way. My Imam has his ilm directly from Allah Azza wa Jal. But some groups thought my Imam is like anyone else. He goes to Quran, follows Sunnah, he tries his best, he does ijtihad. On the other hand, some people at that time believed the Imam receives wahi the way Rasulullah receives wahi. Now, neither of these groups are correct. Neither of them are correct. But you can see how that when they speak in this way, people listen and the minority becomes loud, the majority becomes quiet. Now we come to the life of Imam Rida alayhi salam. Now that first group say, you know what? Imam al-Qadim did not take government. Imam Rida has gone to Banu Abbas in Khurasan directly. At least now he'll be in power. He's been told by Ma'mun that after me, the heir after me will be Imam Rida alayhi salam. He'll be the Khalifa after me. So this group was so committed that, you know what? Finally we have power. Finally. But when Imam Rida alayhi salam goes to Khurasan, does he start giving hukum publicly? No, he says himself, I'll only accept the condition of going to Khurasan, as Ayat al-Khamna explains to us. I'll only go if I'm not linked to a single fatwa given by Ma'mun, only then. So nothing Ma'mun says can be linked to Imam Rida alayhi salam. I can't go into this in more detail, but there are many examples about this. The people are waiting. When's he going to take power? He's so close. He's in government. When will he take power? Imam Rida alayhi salam decides in his wisdom, the approach is not to take power immediately, but instead do something completely different. Imam Rida alayhi salam, in an act of political genius and wisdom from Allah Azza wa Jal, uses the same khilafat which was taken away from Imam Ali alayhi salam to, from the same mimbar for the first time in years, do fadail of Ali alayhi salam. It's been years since someone sat on the mimbar of Rasulullah and actually did fadail of Ali alayhi salam. It's been many years. Not only this, for many years before this time, la'an was considered wajib from this mimbar. If someone did not curse Ali, they were considered not to have done their job if they sat on the mimbar. Now, Rida alayhi salam, every time he speaks, he says, I am the son of the one who was appointed at Ghadiran Mubahila. I'm that Imam. I'm the Imam. In fact, Rida alayhi salam rejected Khilafat on many times. He didn't want Khilafat. He said, I'm not going to accept it. Only when Ma'mun said, I will kill you unless you accept, he accepts it. So the companions, Fadl bin Sahal says, you know, on that day, I saw how little Khilafat was and how great Imam Rida alayhi salam was. He keeps offering Khilafat, he keeps rejecting. I saw on that day how great he was. Why? Because Imamat is much greater than Khilafat. Imam doesn't need Khilafat. He chooses it if he wants it at that time. For example, when Imam Ali alayhi salam becomes the Khalifa finally, Sa'sa bin Suhan says to him, Ya Imam, I don't congratulate you for being the Khalifa. I congratulate Khilafat that now it has Ali. I don't congratulate this seat that you sit on it. I don't congratulate you for sitting on the seat. You sit on the arsh of Allah. I congratulate the seat that before there was no one worthy, now you are sitting on the seat of Khilafah. I congratulate you, not Khilafah. I congratulate you because you are the Imam, not Khilafah. Khilafah was nothing before you. Now look at Hazrat Abbas. He stands on the Kaaba and says, I bear witness, before my master Ali was born in this Kaaba, there were idols inside this Kaaba. When my father Ali was born, it became your Qibla. This is the wilayat. It's much greater than Khilafat. Now come to my brother alayhi salam. Same thing. He's saying to them, I don't need Khilafat. Don't assign me with political slogans. My brother decides when is the time to act, when is the time to not act. At the same time, while I'm in Khurasan, in Medina, the Nusayri group is growing even louder and stronger. They are seeing an opportunity. Imam's gone away. Imam's the one who every year would correct people and say, I'm not God. When you hear the Fadail, it's natural to think, what is this Imam if he's not a human being? But when they reach the level of Allah, every time they would, the Imam would say, no, we're not Allah, we take you towards Allah, we take you towards God. When Muhammad's time comes, they start discussing Isma more. When his son, Imam Jawad becomes the Imam, they notice something. Imam Jawad is the Imam at the age of 7. So this group realized something. We can use this to our advantage. If the Imam is 7 when he's an Imam, then where is he getting his knowledge from? It's not directly from Allah Azza wa Jal. He's not doing ijtihad. He's not following anyone else. He is the Imam. Not only the Imam. If we're following a child, they use this argument to say our child is not like any other children. He is Allah. He's like Allah. He's a child and we still follow him. He has the same authority of all the Imams before him. So they use that to their advantage. Whereas on the other hand, Imam Jawad alayhi salam would continue to speak about Allah Azza wa Jal and that he's only the Imam. However, in his time and the next Imams, they started to go underground in their activities because the oppression faced upon them. So again, the people became frustrated. You're the Imam on this earth. We need a government. You should lead it. Why are you having an underground system? You have walaya takwini. If you want, this earth shakes in your hands. So why don't you take power? Why not now? Why not give us a government now? Whereas our Imams from then onwards instead focused on something different. They established an underground system of wukala, of representatives, who would collect khums, sometimes in secret, answer questions, sometimes in secret, and continue to develop the deen of Islam underground because they knew the ghaibat's about to come. And when the Imam's not there, the people will need guidance and a system to follow. And of course, at the same time, Nusayris continued. This came to the time of the birth before our 12th Imam, the Walayat of our 11th Imam. Our 11th Imam says, no Imam before me has had as many allegations to the Imamate the way I've had allegations to my Imamate. Imam al-Askari alayhi salam faced many problems from this first group. And they simply did not want to follow him because they said, why are you focusing all your attention on underground activities and working on tarbiyat and not taking government? Why not? Because what's the first thing they think? We want government. The way Imam Askari would speak, they'd criticize the grammar he'd speak with. When he'd send a letter, they'd say, why are you signing off in this way and not that way? He'd wear certain clothing. They'd say, why are you wearing these clothing? That's not how you should be dressing clothing. He'd do certain actions. They'd say, why are you doing this action? Your father didn't do these actions. Meaning they'd become so frustrated at this time. And there'd be so many sects come at this time. Ithna Ashri was so severely damaged by all of these other people. It's only by the work of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam that we are Shias in the time of Ghaiba today. Because he made sure in that time, no matter all of the allegations, the mu'mineen would still come to him through his representatives. So when the ghaibat comes, the people know, I should go to a representative of the Imam. It's my job. I need to go to a representative of the Imam. After the ghaibat began, that's when we saw many of these issues becoming more common in our local communities. That person, the Muqassir, there, Nusayri, there, Malang, all of these things. This happened at the time of ghaibat. Now you know where these words come from. They come from those days, those debates of those two minority groups. One group, all wanted politics. That's our first thing. If you don't have the same political slogan as me, you're not following the Imam. Second group, we only want Ali as being Allah. We only believe in that wilaya in the most expansive sense possible. Both groups want you to join them. Whereas the majority throughout history has been somewhere in the middle. They follow politics and they recognize Imam Islam is their wali over both of them. Each group will face disagreements. We face disagreements today as well. How we deal with these disagreements define whether or not we stay unified. And unity is this, staying in the middle way, staying on Siratul Mustaqim, not allowing us to be torn by that reason or by that reason. The Imam spent so many years of work to make sure we are not swayed by any of those voices. So the first issue I raised to all of you was this: when those words are used, am I using them? Am I reinforcing them? Am I making them known? Am I the one who's perpetuating these same words? That this person's a waqasa, this person's a malang. Am I allowing myself to have hatred in my heart because of these words? Is my friendship group including people who are just trying to follow Islam like me, but they have a different approach? Am I speaking to them? Am I going to them with maw'idat al-hasana and hikmah? Am I going to them with wisdom? Or have I discarded them and cut them off and then takfir towards them? The approach of Ahl al-Bayt is to be inclusive and to correct the mistakes with wisdom, not to cut people away. So I told everyone that every night I'll give a piece of advice. We're not coming to the end, but here's today's advice. Look at my friendship group, look at my language. Am I using these words? Am I perpetrating these same actions of takfir? Inshallah, we can hopefully, we are not those people. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The other issue I raised was this. Sometimes people try and cause disunity to us using the example of ulama. Let's say to us, for example, this scholar says this opinion. Why are you not following my marja? Or this scholar has this opinion. Why are you not following this scholar? And then try and use the fact that some ulama do disagree on issues to try and tear us apart. That because our scholars disagree, we should disagree as well. And because we disagree, we should be disunified as well. They use this argument. I mentioned our great ulama who have genuine disagreements, which they do have disagreements, and say because of those disagreements, I shouldn't go to that center or be with this person because they don't follow my marja. They're not with me. Or they follow that scholar. I don't like that scholar, so I don't like them anymore. So many times I've noticed something. The census of people in the UK, of how many Shias there are in the UK, is much larger than Shias who come to the masjids. Most people, majority of Shias in this country don't go to the masajid at all. And most of them don't know about taqleed and these issues. In every family who's active, there are at least 2 or 3 members of the family who don't know about these things. So often someone says, what is taqleed? And they say, why should I do taqleed? All you do is disagree. This marja, this marja. Why should I even do taqleed in the first place? What's the point of it? All this hostile environment. Here's a good solution to this issue. Ulama disagree, and it's fine to acknowledge this. It's normal. This is a feature of ijtihad. Ijtihad was not the norm in the time I was mentioning. Imagine, Imam's going into ghaibat immediately. There's no mush, there's no marja, there's none of it. Why? You don't need a marja. You go to the hadith, you go to the books. The Imam's just gone into ghaibat. Everyone was an akhbari then. Everyone followed the khabar. Everyone followed the news. However, when a new issue came later, that's when we needed a mujtahid to say, look, Imam didn't speak about this issue. What do we do in this situation? Imam didn't clarify this problem. So what do we do? So a person who has studied usul al-fiqh goes to Quran, goes to the hadith, goes to the opinions of the ulama, the consensus, uses their aql, and tries to unpack from those resources what the ruling would be if the Imam was here. However, none of those maraji, none of those ulama are ma'soom. So they sometimes come to different conclusions. It's normal. They're going to the same book, same ahadith, but their approach might be different. They might have certain hadith which they consider more authentic than others, and they're going to disagree. It's normal. Them disagreeing is a sign our ummah is alive. Because if they didn't disagree, if they had just one opinion, we'd follow them as our imam. We have someone who's ma'soom. The very fact that our school of thought has a diversity of opinions is a good sign for us that we are alive and we can explore new ideas and have open scholarship. The only limit on this, and this view comes from Sheikh Tusi, who believes that we have a principle of lutf, which means if the ummah is going too far outside of what the imam wants, our imam will intervene in his own way with the ulama to make sure they don't go outside of the field of what is allowed. Because the Imam is not going to leave us. However, inside what's allowed, we can have different views and it's fine. I'll give you one example of how we have disagreement and it's okay. Where one alim says that something is wajib, one person says it's not wajib. One example. Can a man look at the face of someone who is a woman who is not mahram to him? Issue, okay. Someone come to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And says, Ya Rasulullah, is it allowed? Rasulullah says, it's no problem. Then he sees who's asking. It was Mughira bin Shu'bah who was asking. Rasulullah says, it's allowed unless the person has intentions to do haram with her. Then he's not allowed to look at her. Because he knew Mughira had intentions of zina. We have this hadith of the Prophet where it's allowed to look at the face unless they have intention of sin. Okay, how does that work? Today, in our maraj of our contemporary age, there's one fatwa from Ayatollah Safi Gulbegani who says, if a woman is considered beautiful and she knows she's beautiful and if men look at her, they'd be attracted to her, it's wajib on her to cover her face if she knows she's attractive. Now, how she knows she's attractive, I don't know how she can determine this. But it's wajib on her if she believes men will look at her with lust to cover her face. That's a wajib upon her. That's one opinion. Okay. Then comes the view of Agha Behshat and Ayatollah Tabrizi who say no. If a woman, her face is open, she should only cover her face if she knows someone's going to do a sin when they see her face. So it's ihtiyat and wajib, not wajib kulli, ihtiyat and wajib to cover her face. if she knows that person is going to do a sin. Who are these? Al-Bajjat, Al-Tabrizi. Different ulama, different opinion. This is different to what Imam Khomeini and Sayyid Sistani believe. Imam Khomeini and Sayyid Sistani and Ayatul Nas Makarim Shirazi and Ayatul Hamdani, they all believe that if a woman's face is open in their fatwa, and the only reason when she has to cover is if someone is doing fasad in front of her, yani directly because her face is showing. If that's not the case, it's not wajib for her to cover her face. It's wajib on the man to not look at her face. 5 ulama. Of them, 3 different opinions. 1, she has to cover. 2, ihtiyatan she cover if there are conditions. 3, he has to not look. She doesn't have to cover. Is someone going to say that because of this, we have disunity? No, it's okay. Each marja is trying. Ijtihad means to struggle, to try and find the truth. Each one has their own reasons for their opinion. Each follower must follow their opinion. If I follow one marja and you follow another marja, do I have the right to think bad of you because you don't follow the ruling of my marja? No, we are all trying. Some people will say because the maraja disagree, we should disagree. They disagree because of their ijtihad, a very noble reason to disagree. I have no basis to dislike you just because you don't follow my marja, you don't follow the leader I subscribe to. Literally, one thing is wajib on the man, one's wajib on the woman. It couldn't be more different in that example. Are those scholars and let's go, the scholars are made more great because of how hard they work to find the truth and publish the truth. There are more examples than this of when maraja disagree. And the Maraji meet each other with respect, but their followers don't meet with respect anymore. They don't have respect for each other. They don't meet each other anymore. They look bad at each other. They label them, you follow them, you follow them. That was never the sunnah we were given. So the second reason, when we are taught that we should have disunity because of ulama, the truth is we respect all the ulama who are together take us towards the imam. Because when the imam comes and gives hukum, it's wajib for all of us to follow that imam. These Maraji are taking us towards the imam. And as I've mentioned the view of Sheikh Tusi, it's at least theoretical and some believe practical that our maraji, at least some of them, are in direct communication with the Imam of our time to help them in coming towards the truth, taking guidance from them. Of course, we have discussed about how this works, but if it's true, inshallah, we are being followed by Imam through our ulama. They are a basis for unity, not disunity. Inshallah, we can practice this with Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Can I mention one final point, inshallah? I know we have to conclude soon. I mentioned to you 3 issues, we've only covered 2 of them. The first issue was what do we do when people mention certain language and words to disunify us? About Ahlul Bayt, I mentioned to you, no, Ahlul Bayt are not like that. These are debates which happen in history. We shouldn't apply them in the same way now. We should be open and in our discussions. The second issue was what do we do when people use ulama to disunify? I mentioned ulama disagree all the time. It's fine, it's natural, it's part of our deen. Number 3, I mentioned what do we do when someone uses issues like discrimination to tear us apart, like racism, where they say, for example, people should treat each other differently based on their face, color of their face, their nationality, where they come from, their culture. Sometimes we have certain policies either in countries or in communities where you're discriminated based on where you come from, which country you come from. This is so far away from how we've been taught by Ahlul Bayt. It's not known to the tradition of Ahlul Bayt to have racism or disunity, especially in our communities. One thing we see, unfortunately, is when a follower of Ahlul Bayt discriminates against another follower of Ahlul Bayt purely because they come from a different part of the world to them, different culture, different community, different race towards them, whereas we are one human race. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says on his famous speech, I think it was at Ghadir or an Eid, where he says, you are all from Adam. You are all made of the same substance. An Arab is no greater or less great than a non-Arab. All that distinguishes you is whether you or not you have taqwa. That's the basis. Unfortunately, we might have racism today. Ahlul Bayt help us to stop having racism in our communities. How? If we reflect on who Ali Muhammad actually were, who Ahlul Bayt were, these 12 individuals represent in their genealogy almost every single culture of the Islamic tradition at that time. Some members of Ali Muhammad were not Arab. Some members married into African families, some members married into Persian families, some members married into Roman families, Imam alayhi salam. Each Imam, as we go gradually, is less and less of one pure type of Arab and becomes more and more different in their genealogy. So today, when we're discriminating that person is too dark or too light, that comes from a colonial concept of racism, not from Ahlul Bayt. From Ahlul Bayt, we are all the same. They make this point very clear towards you. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he's Arab. His mother's Arab, his father are Arab. Of course, Abu Talib and Fatima bint Asad, they are full Arab. Okay. Imam Mushtaba alayhi salam, He's full Arab as well. His mother, is Arab, so is her father. They have the same, his father, they have the same link. Abu Abdullah, same thing. Okay. As for Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, his mother is Iranian, she's Persian. So now he genealogically is 50% Arab, 50% Persian, Iranian. Says the Shahbanu. Okay. Now Bakr alayhi salam's mother is Arab. So now he's technically 75% Arab, 25% Persian, based on his lineage. Muhammad Sadiq alayhi salam, also Arab. So now he's 88% Arab, 12% Persian. We're seeing how it goes on. However, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam's mother is African. Not just African, she's considered one of either the Berber or North African from the Ahadith. So now he is 50% African and 44% Arab, 6% Persian in his genealogy. Okay. From him onwards, Imam Rida alayhi salam's mother is African. Imam Jawad alayhi salam's mother is African. So now when it comes to Imam Jawad alayhi salam, he's 88% African and 11% Arab. There are some uncles of Imam Jawad alayhi salam who rejected his wilayat and said, we don't follow him because he's too dark to be an imam. We have this in our books. They went away from Imam Jawad alayhi salam. He was a young child. They said, no, he's too dark to be an imam. And they rejected him. Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam's mother is also African. Imam al-Askari alayhi salam's mother is also African. Our Imam Zamana alayhi salam, his mother, Sayyidina Najis Khatun, Muhammad. There's a discussion over where Sayyidina Najis is from. She was a Roman princess, as you know, but Rome at that time was a much larger empire. It wasn't just Rome, the consulate city. Rome went from technically later on, it would go from the edge of France all the way until the edge of India. According to the ulama, Sayyidina Najis Khatun, genealogically, either she's from Turkey or she's from North Africa. One of the two. If we bear in mind, Imam Zana alayhi salam, his father, son of an African, and Imam alayhi salam. His father, son of an African. His father, son of an African. According to one of the scholars of contemporary age, Imam alayhi salam, his genealogy technically is either 98% African or 50% Anatolian, based on the calculation you do, and only 1.4% Arab left in the way that genealogy works. So we see these pictures in Karbala of Imam alayhi salam looking so white and so beautiful and so blessed. That's not the beauty of the Imam according to this research. The Imam alayhi salam, half of the later Imam's mothers were African. Now, considering they're born to those same mothers, that would affect them as well. Naturally, that's going to affect their complexion. And if Imam Jawad alayhi salam, some people reject him because of his color, ask yourself, will my Imam come? My Imam. And one person expects him to look like a certain way. And because he'll be a different color, will they reject him because of this very reason? What if there are people like this? That because Imam alayhi salam looks different to how I expected, I won't follow him anymore. What if, for example, in my community or in my center, only people of a certain culture or community are able to be allowed in that center or considered members of that member? When my Imam comes and he's not a member or he's not of that same community, what happens then? I just mentioned a piece of research. My Imam alayhi salam, either 98% African or 50% Anatolian, 48% African, and only 1.2%, 1.3% Arab anymore. Will the Arabs follow him? Now you know there's many narrations which come to us of why so many people will abandon Imam Zamana alayhi salam. He won't be what they expect. He'll come to establish justice, they want something else. He'll come to do one thing, they want something else. He might look different, they'll do something else. If my Ahlul Bayt are like this, of different cultures, I have no right to be racist in my community. I can be racist to an African or a Persian or a Roman or anyone, because my Imams have married into all of those cultures. Now, whether or not my Imam looks like this or like that, however he looks, I'll accept him because he is Hujjat of Allah on this earth. Not because he looks a certain way. The antidote to racism is Ahlul Bayt. In the camp of Hussein, there is John and there is Abbas. There are those who came from Africa and those who came from Persia. All were welcome in this camp. And today, the Azadar of Hussein alayhi salam, if they're from this country, if they're from the West or the East, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Persia, Nigeria, Indonesia, wherever they are from, if they say Labbaika Ya Hussein, they are part of the camp of Hussein. Abu Abdullah brings us together under one banner. Nothing else matters except our love for Hussein alayhi salam. So to bring our discussion to an end, the conclusion. Unity only exists if the people want to remain under the path of unity. Whether someone comes mentioning how Ahlul Bayt were, whether they come mentioning this scholar's name, whether they come mentioning an issue of race and discrimination, none of those things are worth more than unity for the sake of my Imam alayhi salam. Inshallah, tomorrow's discussion, which is the final discussion, will piece all these ideas together and conclude. How do I make sure I am unified for the sake of Imam Zaman alayhi salam? Because my 12th Imam needs a very specific type of unity for his dhuhr to end. What's that unity which the Imam needs and is waiting for, which I might not be doing, inshallah? We'll discuss it tomorrow, inshallah, with your support. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let us now, inshallah, in the last moments that we have, turn our minds and our hearts to that Ma'suma who's narrated to have died on this night, on this day. We are told in narration from Imam alayhi salam that if you want to visit me, visit my sister Ma'suma. It's as if you visited me. Other narrations say that if you want to do ziyarat of Sayyidah Fatima on this earth, go towards Qom. There do your ziyarat for Sayyidah Fatima. This land of Qom now has been blessed because of the blessing of Sayyidah Ma'suma in Qom. This sister is in Medina and her brother is in Khurasan, alayhi salam. And she says, I wish to see my brother. He's too far away from me. They were very close during their lives. She leaves her town of Medina and she goes towards Khurasan. As she's traveling in Khurasan, Murada alayhi salam is in the government of Banu Abbas, facing many issues, facing so much oppression from inside the government. They try and attack him. They try and turn people away from him. They try and spread rumors. Nothing works. Ma'mun decides the time has come to do the same act Murada alayhi salam did to his father. The time has come for Imam to be shaheed. Sayyidah Ma'suma is traveling to Khurasan to see the Imam. Imam is in Khurasan. While he's in Khurasan, Ma'mun sends an order saying, bring Ar-Rida to me, I wish to see him. My Imam stands and walks knowing that he's going for the last time towards the Darbar. Ar-Rida alayhi salam walks. As he walks, one hadith says, he sees one of his companions outside the door in the palace. Qadr al-Dahlawi. Qadr says, where are you going? Ar-Rida says, I have been summoned to go to see Ma'mun. Qadr says, can I come with you? Imam says, no, I'm going alone. Then Imam says, when I come out, when you see me, maybe the face of my color will change. That's because I have been poisoned from this camp right now. And when I come out, Qadr, don't say anything to me. I'll be in so much pain, I won't be able to answer even the salam that you give me. That poison will affect me so much. Imam alayhi salam goes inside. He walks in and he sees in front of him, a Ma'mun is there. In front of him there's a plate of food and all around there are enemy holding swords. Islam walks up in front. Ma'mun says, Ya Ar-Rida, before we begin speaking, eat something. Imam sees in front of him a small bowl of grapes. Do you know why Imam Islam is Gharib al-Ghuraba? This is why it's a Gharib al-Ghuraba. He looks up, there is no friend to help him, there's no brother, there's no supporter, there's only enemies and there's a plate of poison in front of him. This is why he's Gharib al-Ghuraba. In Khurasan, there's no Imam, there's just my Gharib Imam right now in Mashhad. Imam alayhi salam says, I will eat. He takes these 2 grapes, he eats just 2 and puts it down and stands. Immediately the poison affects him. As he walks away, Ma'mun says, Ma'mun, Rida, where are you going? He says, I'm going where you have sent me. He walks out, Qadr sees him, he sees his whole body has changed. Imam is stumbling out of this darbar and walking, his face color has changed. Before he says, Imam raises his hand and says, don't talk to me, Al-Qadr, I'm in too much pain to answer you. He walks away. Sayyidah Ma'suma on these days is passing towards Iran. As she's passing, they say to her, come towards Qom. You are Sayyid Zadi, you are daughter of the Imam, come into our ziyarat. She says, I'm going to see my Imam in Khurasan. He's Gharib Watan, I'm going to see him. But they say, no, come to Qom, come and see us. At least one day spend with us in Qom. Sayyidah Ma'suma then turns her direction, goes towards Qom. As she's traveling, the riwayat comes from Rabi alayhi salam, the poison is hurting him so much, he lays down on his bed. As he's laying there, the woman around him starts crying and weeping. Imam Rida says, I'm that Imam, that I'm the only Imam who woman will carry my body because there are no men around me to carry my body. Then he says, when I die, don't do my ghusl or kafan. Why? Only an Imam can do ghusl and kafan for me and I'm an Imam. Then he says, I don't want to lie on this bed. Imam rises from his bed and lays on the ground in front. They say, Imam, why are you lying on the ground? He says, I'm going to be shaheed. I'm in my last days. I'm going to die now. How can I lie on a bed when my master
Master Hussein on the day of Ashura was so ghareeb. He was lying on the hot plains of Karbala. Neither he was standing nor sitting. Why? There were so many arrows in the back of Jaddi Hussein. Neither he was standing or sitting. How can I lie comfortably when my Master Hussein lay uncomfortably? That Al-Islam lays on the ground. While he's laying on the ground, one riwayat says as he's lying there, or when he goes back onto his bed, he starts speaking the dhikr of Allah. At some point while he's speaking, he stops. Why? Malik al-Maut has come. My Imam has been shaheed. When he's been shaheed, Imam al-Islam has died. The announcement goes wide. Imam has been killed. It's been killed. Now Sayyidah Masuma reaches Qum. As she reaches Qum, she sees there is black on all of the walls. Everyone is mourning. Everyone is crying. The walls are draped in black. She enters and says, "You've invited me to come. Why are you mourning?" The Amir says, "I apologize to be the one to tell you, Ya Sayyidah Masuma, but this morning we were told, before you arrived, we were told that in Khurasan, Ar-Rida has been shaheed." When she hears this, Sayyidah Masuma falls to the ground and says, "How ghareeb am I that I wanted the ziyarat of my master and I could not see him." But I say to Ya Azadar, Sayyidah Masuma could not see her brother. She says, "I wish I could have done ziyarat of my Imam." Now come to Karbala. There is one sister who has reached her Mawla. Sayyidah Zainab is standing 70 steps away from Abu Abdullah. As he lays in the place of Karbala, Shimr walks towards him. Imam Hussein says, "Zainab, I'm still alive. Go back inside. For as long as I'm alive, no Na'meram should see your face while you are watching. Hussein is alive, Zainab." Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridwan wa qada'i. Rasul bi amrih. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. For the sake of our Imam and our Sayyidah Masuma, allow all of us to be ziyarat of Mashhad and Qum, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, the example we have been given by Ahlul Bayt to have unity, allow us to have this unity, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, allow for the sake of this Majalis and those who hosted it and the fact that I read earlier, for those Marubi's level to be increased in Jannah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, any tears we have shed, our sadness, the sadness of our hearts, allow us to be resurrected with the amal of this azan, Ya Allah. And finally, Ya Allah, as we leave Ayam Azam, let us leave these Ayam to become close to Imam Zaman al-Hujjah al-Qaim al-Muntadhar, inshallah. Allahumma nas'aluka bihaqqi Fatimata wa biha ba'li wa baniha wa as-sirr musta'awduhu fiha an tusalli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Haram, Hadari Shir Jawa, Alamdar Haram. Marhaba Shir Jawa, 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 Alamdar Haram. Marhaba Shir Jawa, 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 Alamdar Haram. Safir Tishnalaba, Hadari Shir Jawa. शहंशाह वफा सानी है दरमौला सकीना के चाचा फातिमा ज़हरा के दुआ वो शबी के सलालम दार वफा बनी हाशिम का कमर नादिशा कर वो बला मौला कुर्बान दिलो जान.
Hussein, 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 आती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, अलविदा है अलविदा, अलविदा, जाती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, 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 जाती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, अलविदा, जाती है वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, 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 जाती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, 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 तुम भी ज़ैनब से कहो, तुम भी ज़ैनब से कहो, ऐ मेरी ख़वात अलविदा, अलविदा, जाती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, मरक़दे शबीर से आई सुनते ही सदा, मरक़दे शबीर से आई सुनते ही सदा, अलविदा जाओ बहन, अलविदा जाओ बहन, ऐ बिन्ते हैदर अलविदा, अलविदा, जाती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, आए अलविदा, देना है पैगाम सुगरा, तो वो कह दीजिए, देना है पैगाम सुगरा, तो वो कह दीजिए, कुछ तो पा जाए सुकून, कुछ तो पा जाए सुकून, बीमारों मुद्दत अलविदा, अलविदा, जाती है सूए वतन, जाती है सूए वतन, हम शीर सरवर अलविदा, अलविदा है अलविदा, तुम बहन कह दे हम न भूले थे आके दिलबर अलविदा अलविदा जाती है सूए वतन हमशीर सरवत अलविदा 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 ढूंढेंगे आगोश मादर में वो भाई को ज़रूर ढूंढेंगे आगोश मादर में वो भाई को ज़रूर खो गए क्यों कर कहूँगी खो गए क्यों कर कहूँगी मुझसे असग़र अलविदा अलविदा जाती है अलविदा 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 ऊंचे गर सुगरा नगीना हो तो कह देना बहन ऊंचे गर सुगरा सकीना हो तो कह देना बहन हो गई वो शाम के हो गई वो शाम जिंदा में मुज़्तर अलविदा अलविदा जाती है सरवत अलविदा 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 बेवफा मुस्लिम और अंसारों बेवफा तो मुस्लिम और अंसारों आप भी जाए वतन आप भी जाए वतन या हमसे कहकर अलविदा अलविदा जाती है सूए वतन सूए वतन हमशीर सरवत अलविदा 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 तुम भी ज़ैनब से कहो तुम भी ज़ैनब से कहो ऐ मेरी ख़्वाहत अलविदा अलविदा जाती है सूए वतन हमशीर सरवत अलविदा 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 अलविदा
या रसूल अल्लाह या हबीब अल्लाह या हबीब अल्लाह या रसूल अल्लाह या हबीब अल्लाह या हबीब अल्लाह बाबा तेरी फुरकत और उम्मत के सिलम दाना भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा। हक मांगने बाबा दरबार से तम जाना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, दिली नहीं ज़हरा। दिन रात तड़पती हूँ तन्हाई में बाबा, पुरसा मुझ देने को कोई भी नहीं आता। बाबा तेरे जाते ही उम्मत का बदल जाना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, हाय भूली नहीं ज़हरा, तेरी नहीं ज़हरा। तहरीर तेरी टुकड़े जालिम ने कर डाली, बच्चों की गवाही भी जालिम ने नहीं मानी। झूठा मुझे कहला कर दरबार में रुलवाना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, दहली नहीं ज़हरा। दहलीज़ पे जिस घर की आते थे सलामी को, बाद आपके उस घर की तौकीर जरा देखो। उम्मत का उसी दर पर है आग कले आना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा। जलता हुआ दरवाजा दीवार थी और मैं थी, क्या अर्ज़ करूं बाबा मैं सोच नहीं सकती। एक ज़रब की शिद्दत से मोहसिन का गुजर जाना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा। और वो जुल्म हुआ बाबा मैंने ना सोचा था, जालिम ने मेरे मुंह पर जब मारा तमाचा था। सहमे हुए बच्चों का मादर से लिपट जाना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा। बाबा मेरे हैदर की गर्दन में रस्म बांधी, फिर गलियों में फिरवाया, उस वक्त भी मैं तड़पी। बाबा मेरे वाली का रोते हुए घर आना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, आए भूली नहीं ज़हरा। रेहान से बोलेंगी मैं शर्मे ये शहजादी, तुम मुझको नहीं भूले मैं तुमको नहीं भूली। फरहान को तुम लेकर जन्नत में चले आना, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं ज़हरा, भूली नहीं जहरा, भूली नहीं जहरा, बाबा तेरी फुरकत और उम्मत के सितम दाना, भूली नहीं जहरा, भूली नहीं जहरा। या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन।
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن السيد الوصين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا مني الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا الشمس الشموس نيس النفوس، السلام عليك يا غريب الطوس، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأعمان الأمان الأمان لفتة الزمان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان، عجل الله تعالى فرجاك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجاك وظهورك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم كل وليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك